This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English.
Boom, shake the room. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English. Today we have a little bit of a different start to the show because I had a little bit of a technical problem. So the first 5 minutes of the recording, there was a very strange echo, which I didn't want to make you suffer by listening to this echo. So what I have done is I have deleted the first 5 minutes of my conversation with Dan the man. But I will give you a quick summary now of what we're talking about, and then we can jump right into the conversation and pick it up. So, we were talking about people that suffer from misophonia. And if you don't know what misophonia is, don't worry, because I didn't know what it was either until about an hour ago. So misophonia is people that get annoyed and frustrated when they hear little sounds. An example of this would be, let's say you are studying in the library and the person next to you is clicking a pen like this. If you are someone like me who gets very frustrated by these little sounds, that means you suffer from misophonia, which, don't worry, because this study from Northwestern University and the University of Amsterdam say that if you suffer from misophonia, it means you are a genius and you have above average intelligence. So this is what Dan and I were talking about, and especially about eating sounds, because according to the study, this is one of the most common things that annoys people. And because Dan is very stupid, he didn't understand what lip smacking means. So if you don't understand, don't worry, because the podcast begins with me explaining it to Dan. So obviously Dan is learning English just like you. And one last thing, very early on the podcast, you will hear me make a comment about Dan kissing me. This is something we spoke about in the first 5 minutes, but I will explain it at the end of the podcast. So remember, we are starting with me explaining to Dan what lip smacking is. Have fun. Lip smacking is when you're eating and you're going...
Okay, but how many people do you hear do that?
If someone
did do it, I'd be pretty angry. But
very, very good second conditional. If someone did do it in the past, I would be pretty angry. Yeah, it's completely disgusting. Another one is swallowing. Give us an example of swallowing, Dan. Please don't try and kiss me again.
I can't do that. You're the expert on swallowing. Why don't you do it?
Oh, very good. So swallowing is this. And what Dan is referring to there is something extremely rude, which I will not talk about.
The thing is, swallowing. You can't. That can't be turned down. I get less angry with that because I think it's.
Well, you can swallow, but if someone is drinking, for example, and they keep going, and you can stop that. That's not necessary.
Okay, maybe so, but when you're eating, that's. I don't know. It must be the shape of someone's throat. I don't know.
Another one is breathing sounds, which I must say doesn't annoy me so much.
Are you crazy? When I includes. You said I snored.
Yes, but that's different.
Snoring.
Give us an example. Give us an example of a snore, Dan. Very good. So that's when you're sleeping. And it also includes sneezing, which I think is quite unfair.
100%.
What is a sneeze? Give us an example of a sneeze, Dan.
Achoo.
But we can do better than that. Come on, Dan.
Piss off. You ever go.
Achoo. And another one is hand sounds, like pen clicking, which does drive me crazy, I must say.
Well, I click my fingers quite a lot and clap.
But clap. Then why do you clap?
Well, there are equal studies because you're a fan of rubbish university studies that says that creates energy in a room
Clapping.
and clicking, just sort of that sort of thing. Yeah.
I've never seen you just sitting in a room and start clapping.
No,
Remember,
as I walk
clapping is
around,
this.
yeah, I occasionally clap.
I've never seen you clap in 27 years.
Although I tell you what actually does really annoy me.
Tell us, Dan.
Is whistling. Oh, especially when
Why?
it's almost always not in tune, and someone's.
I whistle a lot,
I
actually.
know you do. I know you do. This is my chance to tell you. Stop whistling.
Oh, thanks. So, what it says about people that suffer from misophonia is they must think outside the box for a way to basically not hear these sounds. So, think outside the box is a common expression, basically means to think in a creative way. An example of which is when I was at university and people used to speak in the library, which drove me crazy. So I, as I am so intelligent, would look for the table in the most difficult position so there were less people, so people couldn't talk. So there's an example.
Is
of my
that creative
intelligence there.
thinking, or is that just you? You know,
No, I don't know. Tell me.
doing what needs to be done. That's not thinking differently.
Common
It's quieter.
sense.
It's
Common
quiet
sense.
over there. I'll stand over there. That's not thinking outside the box. That's thinking perfectly within the box.
So basically, common sense is what you're trying to say there, Dan.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Well, I disagree. Okay, so now we have a list of annoying things, and let's consider how annoying they are. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So people, when you are on an aeroplane, moving their seat back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just disgusting.
I completely agree with you. Basically, when somebody moves their seat back, they are saying to you, "I don't give a fuck about you, and I don't care. I'm moving my seat back. You can fuck off." Is basically what they're saying.
Yes, completely. Or also when they're repeatedly hitting the back of your seat with their legs or pulling their little tray thing down.
Oh, but they're pulling the tray down, so that's like the tray. He means
Yeah,
the
no,
small table. The small
I'm okay
table.
with that. But when it's every 2 minutes and there's something smashing the back of your head, then that's where I draw the line.
Oh, draw the line. That's a very good expression there. When he draws the line, that means when he cannot tolerate it anymore. But it also creates a domino effect because sometimes if someone moves their seat back, then I've not got enough space, so I have to move my seat back, and then
You know the person behind you is thinking you're a cunt.
Yeah, oh, very strong word there, Dan. Cunt is the most offensive word in the English language. Is not to be repeated, but is important to know. So the next one is people that do not pick up dog shit. What about that?
Oh yeah, it drives me insane.
Yeah,
It drives me insane. I think that's probably one. That's not only is that annoying, that's unhygienic. That's disgusting.
Yeah, I specifically remember here in Palermo, I was eating my lunch outside in a piazza.
Yeah.
And a girl was probably, I don't know, 15, and she had her dog with her that was probably about 3-4 meters in front of me. The dog in the middle of the piazza just done a massive shit. And she just walked away. So I was sitting there eating my lunch, looking at the dog shit.
Oh,
Obviously I moved, but I wouldn't consider that move thinking outside the box.
In England, though, there are heavy fines for people who don't pick up their dog shit.
Oh, so what is a fine, Dan?
A financial penalty.
Oh, very good way. Oh, that is probably why it's called a fine. I never thought about that. Financial. Yeah, it's basically money you have to pay for doing something wrong. And heavy fine is a big fine. I imagine it is everywhere, but it's not so easy to catch someone, is it?
Well, it's quite now. I think over here it's quite frowned upon. So people, if someone doesn't pick up their shit, often I've seen people say to someone, are you going to pick up your dog's shit?
So when he said that it's frowned upon, that's another good expression to say.
Something that's socially unacceptable.
Ooh, fantastic, Dan. Thank you very much for helping me. Socially unacceptable. Okay, so the next one is when you are on an escalator. And remember, an escalator is the stairs that move up. Often you will find at an underground station in London. And people do not stand on the right. What do you think about that?
That drives me insane because I always walk up or down an escalator. I don't wait around. I've got places to go. So I like to keep moving. And then you get some tit.
Some idiot, he means.
Yeah, who's standing on the left when everyone else on the escalator is standing on the right.
I know, it absolutely drives me crazy too. I often think if I had a gun on me, I would probably shoot that person. I don't know why. It just makes me so angry. It shouldn't.
It's common sense. Everyone is standing on the right, so I'm going to block the passage on the left.
It also does in other countries. For example, when I lived in Rome, it just drove me completely crazy.
But then again, in Rome, is that the normal procedure?
Well, there's not like London where they have signs saying stay to the right, but generally okay. That is what generally what happens. Okay, so I've got another one here. People that ask to go in front of you at the supermarket. So when you are in the queue to pay, and I don't know, there are 3 people, and then the person behind you only has 2 things and says, "Can I come in front of you?" What do you think about that?
Well, that only annoys me if I've also got 2 things.
Yeah.
Because then obviously not.
But the thing
if I've got a whole trolley full, which never happens, I would then think, okay, that seems fair. But if I've also got only a few items, they can fuck off. What about you?
I completely agree with you. Sometimes, like, I've had 5 items and they've had 2, and I think, fuck off. Look, I've only got 5. But also, if I've got a lot of shopping, Dan referred to it as a trolley of shopping. It also drives me crazy because then I say to him, "Okay, you can go," and then another person comes and says, "Oh, I've only got 2 items." Where does it stop? Is what I want to say.
How often has that happened to you?
Well, probably once in my whole life, but
okay. And when you refuse to let someone in front, what do you say? Because I don't know.
I normally always say yes, and then just stand there and be completely
angry and quiet
in my own head, and go home in a rage. And remember, in a rage is in a very angry state.
To the point where you have to make a podcast about it.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I do. I take out my anger in a podcast. So the last one I've got here, something that drives me crazy, but I'm not sure about anyone else, is, so let's say I'm talking to you. Like, we are together. We're in the room, okay?
Yeah.
You are on the phone, let's say, to a mutual friend. Let's call this mutual friend Lee. You're speaking to Lee, and then Lee says to you, "Say hello to Martin." And then you have to say to me, "Lee said hello." And then I feel obliged to say I said hello too.
Why does that annoy you?
I just think, what's the point?
It's not because you're a genius, let me tell you.
I think it's because I'm a genius.
That is just someone wanting to pass on their...
But what is the point of just to say hello? If he wants to say hello, send me a message and say hello.
You've always struggled to build rapport with people, haven't you, Martin?
Why do we need a middleman, is my question.
So you would prefer if they just passed over the phone?
No, I would
Lee wants to say
nothing
to you, Martin. I pass the phone over. You're right, Martin. You're right, Lee. And then you pass the phone back.
No, nothing.
Cut out the middleman.
When he says cut out, he means to remove. No, I would prefer nothing. If he has something to tell me, you can tell me.
He has.
What? Hello?
Yes.
That's not That's not interesting enough. I'm a busy man, Dan. Okay.
Now I know this, I'm going to make sure this happens a lot.
Well, as I said, I'm a busy man. And speaking of being a busy man, it is time to go. But I will just leave you and the listeners with one final thought, okay?
Okay.
So remember, next time you get annoyed by one of these stupid things, just take a deep breath and think, at least I'm a genius. Okay?
Okay, I'll do that when I'm in the supermarket.
You do that, Dan. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. See you later.
See you soon. So that was Dan and I talking about misophonia. So thanks for staying with me, and sorry about the problems at the beginning. I just want to play you a small part of the audio that I had to delete to show you that I wasn't joking. And also there are actually a couple of good words that Dan mentions. So this was obviously the part of the podcast that I deleted, and I asked Dan what annoyed him, and this was his answer.
Two things that really send me into a rage.
Okay, a rage is a strong state of anger, to be very angry. So what sends you into a rage, Dan?
If someone is eating down the phone to me, I'm on the verge of violence when I hear that.
So when he says I'm on the verge of violence, it means that he is about to become violent.
It's the rudest thing I think anyone could do. The other thing is, and it doesn't annoy me as much, but I just can't stop hearing it, is when someone bites their cutlery.
Yeah. So the cutlery is the knife and fork.
Or spoon. Spoon's the worst. There's no need to bite a
spoon is also cutlery, Dan.
Yeah, but you haven't specified the spoon. You said knife.
It comes. The listeners understood the category.
Yeah,
obviously,
spoon,
you didn't.
But spoon. If someone bites a spoon, that's worse than biting a fork.
Yeah, it's a difficult decision, but both also drive me completely crazy. I think eat your food, not your cutlery. So 2 good words there: rage when you are very angry, and cutlery, like knives, forks, spoons, etc. Anyway, some of the other terms that we heard during the podcast were whistling, if you remember. That is whistling. To think outside the box, which is a fantastic term, which means to think in a creative way. Dan also said another very good term, which was that's where I draw the line, which means that is where I cannot tolerate it anymore. He also used the most offensive word in the English language, which is cunt. It's a word that is actually used quite a lot between friends, but never ever say that to somebody you do not know, because it is very, very offensive. So remember, the word is cunt, C-U-N-T, but I hope my mother is not listening to this, because if she is, she will kill me for using that word. Another term was heavy fines. So remember, you get heavy fines in England if you do not pick up your dog shit, which is a financial penalty. And the last one, again used by Dan, he actually used some good vocabulary today, was when he said not picking up dog shit is quite frowned upon. And he also explained that term very well. So it's frowned upon, it means that it is socially unacceptable and that your friends will look at you in a strange way for doing it. So as I promised at the start of the show, I will now explain what I meant when I said, please don't try to kiss me again, Dan. So if you remember, the podcast started by us talking about lip smacking, and Dan didn't know what it was. So when I asked him before that to demonstrate it, this is what he said. What is lip smacking, Dan? Give me an example.
I actually don't know what that is.
Are you mental?
Like,
yeah, no, that's a kiss. Please, Dan, please don't try and kiss me, okay? This is embarrassing. So as you can see, Dan is completely useless. And for this reason, I hope to find a more interesting guest. Anyway, I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.